Alright, so this is going to be a video about solving rational equations. Okay, so some tips to solve rational equations is the first one, simplify. Make sure you simplify first. Solve like any other problem. So if you're dividing by some number, then you can multiply to cancel it. Just like solving for x in any other problem, same thing. Use parentheses when multiplying and dividing by polynomials. It just kind of keeps everything together so you don't make any easy errors. And then last but not least, make sure you check for extraneous solutions. Okay, remember there's certain excluded values that you can't plug in, so if that ends up happening, then you can't use that value. Okay, so to kind of go over these tips, I have an example right here that I'm going to work through. So I would try working this problem on your own as much as you can. So pausing the video and then hitting play and then watching me solve it and see how it compares to what you got. So here we go. All right, so the first thing that I want to do here is I want to simplify or factor as much as I possibly can. So I have 2n, negative 2n over n minus 1 plus n plus 3 over, now this would factor out to n plus 1 times n minus 1 is equal to 1. Okay? Now since I'm adding these two rational expressions here, I want to have them in common denominators. Now the common denominator here, just because I have an n minus 1 here and an n minus 1 here, an easy way of kind of combining these would just be to multiply the top and the bottom here by n plus 1. And then you'll end up with common denominators. Okay? So you end up with negative 2n times n plus 1 divided by n plus 1 times n minus 1 plus this thing right here. All equal to 1. Now since everything has a common denominator here is the same thing, what I'm going to do is multiply both sides by this denominator so it cancels out. So I'm going to put brackets around this whole thing right here, and I'm going to multiply both sides by this n plus 1 times n minus 1. Okay, so that would cancel out all the denominators here, and you'd end up with negative 2n times n plus 1 plus n plus 3 is equal to, now I'm going to simplify this by bringing them back together, and you end up with n squared minus 1, just like we had originally. Okay, from here I'm going to simplify. You have negative 2n squared plus negative 2n plus n plus 3 is equal to n squared minus 1. So as you can see, we have a quadratic formula kind of going here, quadratic equation going. So you have negative 2n squared. I'm going to simplify right here. Minus n plus 3 is equal to n squared minus 1. I'm going to subtract off the n squared and then add a 1, so this all cancels here. So subtract off the n squared, add a 1, and you end up with negative 3n squared minus n plus 4 is equal to 0. Okay, if you use the quadratic formula on this, or if you just factor it, you should end up with the answers of n is equal to negative 4/3 and n is equal to 1. But as you can see from the very top, you can't plug in 1 because then you'll have an excluded value because you'll be dividing by 0. So you cannot use the 1. This would be your only answer for solving this rational equation. Okay, so if you have any questions about solving rational equations, let me know.